Welcome to Second International Culinary Hour. We're going to cover grease today. I have a couple, if you have your handouts, you can go along with me, a couple of facts and figures. First of all, if you look at the where Greece is situated, in Europe you have like pretty much three peninsulas. The Iberian, Italian, and Balkan Peninsula. So the Iberian Peninsula is like Spain, Portugal. Italian obviously is Italy. And the Balkan Peninsula is where you have like Macedonia, Albania, Bulgaria, and Greece in the southernmost tier. Now, that being said, it's in a very hot, temperate climate, and 1/5 of the whole country, the southern part of Greece, in particular, is 1,400 plus islands. So that's 1/5 of it, but 4/5 of the whole country is mountainous. So when you have this high elevation and you're surrounded by a series of islands, you basically have a lot of coastline and high elevation sloping up. So it lends itself really well to sun exposure, and that's why you get a lot of the products that are produced there, olives, things like that, citrus fruits. By far, seafood is prevalent in all of their meals, only because the coastline is all over the place. You have all these islands. They usually use lamb and goat for their main source of protein other than fish, but it's usually reserved for kind of like a holidays or special functions like that, like birthdays, celebrations like that. The typical meal in Greece is going to be eaten very light breakfast, coffee, nuts, fruits. The big meal is going to occur like around 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon because they break with the heat of the day, especially in the agrarian part of the country outside of the urban areas. They're going to break after school lets out, business is closed, they're going to have like a meal and they're going to relax, they're going to sleep, and they're going to go back to work later on. And the big meal, like most of Europe, is going to be eaten at 10 o'clock at night. But typically they have like a snack in between, and that's going to consist of like fruit, nuts, breads, light fare. Because of the hot climate, you're not going to inundate yourself with a lot of heavy food. So if you look at your sheets here, a lot of traditions date back thousands of years. Much of the same food is eaten today. Dolmades, which are stuffed grape leaves. They take like a Chardonnay grape leaf, they'll pickle it, and they'll stuff it with like bulgur wheat or rice, currants, anything like that. Fruits, vegetables, and grains. Archestratus was 350 BC, believed to have written the first cookbook, codified a lot of things that the Greeks were doing in ancient Greece. Eastern Western traditions influenced present-day cuisine of Greece. They got nuts, honey, sesame from Persia. About 197 BC, when the Romans invaded, they got pasta and various sauces, not tomato sauces as of yet. Southern area of Greece, with the Arab influence, got spices as cumin, allspice, and cloves. Turks brought to them coffee, and potatoes and tomatoes weren't given to Greece until the discovery of the New World. After they discovered Americas, they brought that back to the country. Wheat has been cultivated for about thousands of years. They use rice prominently too. Olives, fish, chickpeas, honey, all that stuff has been around for a long time, especially in the desserts. Not typically dessert eaters, but when they do, they like it really sweet. Honey, usually honey nut, a phyllo-based pastry is considered flour, which is wheat based and water. Light breakfasts are eaten, coffee, nuts, and fruits. Main meal, again, eaten around 1 or 2 in the afternoon, followed by a rest period during the hottest part of the day when schools are closed and businesses closed. Late afternoon is light refreshment time. It's called mezethis. It's bread, fruits, nuts, olives, cheese, dips, and soups. Very light eating, especially in that hot climate. Evening meal is eaten around 10 o'clock at night. Herbs that are cultivated, thyme, basil, oregano, rosemary, sage, and fruits such as nectarines, oranges, lemons, pomegranates, peaches, and apples. And milk from sheep or goats is used extensively, but because it's so hot, they usually make it into a yogurt or a cheese to extend the shelf life and the usage of it. Okay, that being said, I'm going to start. First of all, the cooking methods. We're going to cover cold emulsions today. The first thing I'm going to do is make a vinaigrette. Now, typically, when you have a vinaigrette, that's store-bought vinaigrette, if you buy like those seasoned packages, it tells you to fill the oil to this line and the vinegar to that line, you shake it, and it separates immediately. Well, those like the store-bought things. This way, you're going to create emulsion that's going to last pretty significantly. What you have to do in an emulsion basically is always having 3 parts of oil to 1 part of acid. It could be anything like vinegar, lemon juice. I'm particularly going to use red wine vinegar today. What you want to do is slowly introduce the oil to the vinegar, because if I poured the oil en masse into this vinegar, it would never get incorporated. Eventually, it will separate over a period of time. It's called flocculation. You want to make these microscopic particles. And what you're trying to do is introduce it very slowly into the liquid medium, and you can go faster and faster proceed as emulsion starts. But the first thing you always want to do is add your 1 part of vinegar with any of your garnish ingredients here. I'm going to use garlic, salt, pepper, mustard, very simple vinaigrette. Because when I start adding the oil and make these microscopic particles, they're going to need like a surface area, something to hold on to. So you always add your acid and all your herbs and seasonings first. And once that's pulverized, you can slowly add your oil to it, very slowly in the beginning to get it going. As you'll see, that's why I use this clear when you can see it eventually start thickening up. But you can do it by hand, but for expedite, I'm going to use this. You're going to pulse it very quickly, but also the heat of the machine could also help break emulsion too, so I want to do quick pulses on it in the beginning. So I'm going to do like a 3 parts oil to 1 part vinegar, so I'm going to add the vinegar first. I'll go by cups, make it easy. So I'm using red wine vinegar. And my oil. Give me the culture. I'm going to add a couple cloves of garlic. Salt. And what this is doing, after the garlic is pulverized, you have the salt granules, particularly the pepper too, tiny microscopic surface area. So as that oil gets introduced, it's going to have tiny particles that have something to adhere to. That's why you always add your seasoning first. Use a touch of mustard. For sweetness, because obviously it's very acidic, sweet and sour always go good together. A touch of honey is always good for that syrup. That's broken up good. I'm going to use olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. Now, there's a lot of olives out there. Extra virgin just means when you get it, it's always the best one to eat because it's the first press. When they harvest olives, extra virgin means they're typically just using the fruit of that olive. Any other successive presses involved whatever's left over from the first press, plus stems and seeds. And that's when you get this inherent bitterness and you lose that fruity flavor. So that's why extra virgin, obviously more expensive because you're dealing totally with the flesh of that olive. But the second presses are going to get like more bitter things, stems and things like that, which you don't really want. Tell you the truth, I don't really know why they make it. It doesn't really serve much of a purpose. Okay, here's the first cup of oil. Again, I'm just doing small pulse in the beginning to get it going. As I progress, I can add it quicker. I'm kind of just watching as it pools up. It's getting thicker, not too much separation yet. You're going to see what they want. It gets to a stage of what they call nappe. It's very thick. It'll coat the back of a spoon. And that's kind of what you're looking for, especially when you're dealing with the greens that I'm using, because you don't want to have like only oil on top of your leaves, which would happen, and the vinegar and the flavor is going to the bottom of your plate. And also, when I do make this vinaigrette for garnish, I'm not going to add this. I'm going to garnish the pita with lettuce and tomatoes and some onion. If you add the vinaigrette to your vegetables too soon, you're going to find out that on your plate you're going to get this pool of water on the bottom of it because you dress it too soon. Always add a vinaigrette to your vegetables like a salad right before it serves, before you eat it, because what happens is there's a very fine cell wall structure in all your greens, your plants. Acid will attack that. So once that is gone, all the inherent water, 80% in your lettuce ends up on your plate. And so you get like this soupy salad. So always dress your greens before service time, but just before you're going to eat it. I can see it getting really thick now. One more addition. I can see if it was like a store-bought brand, it would have been separated by now. It immediately separates. So you're dealing with you're dealing with densities. Anything like water-based, vinegar, oil, is always going to go to the bottom. Fat is always going to rise to the top. But when you emulsify it like this, it could retain its shape in your refrigerator for a good 4 or 5 hours. You don't have to shake it. There. That's done. put that aside. Now the sauce I'm going to use, we have lamb, the marinade for the lamb souvlaki. If you look at it, the ratio between the acids, already made this marinade, the lamb has marinated, I cooked most of it off. Basically 3-to-1 of oil, including your lemon juice and your red wine vinegar, to your olive oil. So the marinade was basically the same as that, with the addition of the garlic, salt, black pepper, thyme, marjoram, basil, oregano, and bay leaves. Those are herbs that are inherent in the Greek culture for the most part. Rosemary, things like mint and rosemary are very good. That's why even nowadays it's kind of like a bad carryover. They use mint jelly when you have lamb, because typically in the hot climates, lamb being gamey as it is anyway, they used to use like pepper and heavy herbs like rosemary and mint to mask the flavor of the meat when it was going off, to preserve it. So when you cooked it, you didn't taste, now it's not only gamey, but it's actually going bad. So they used to marinate that. So as cultures evolved, they wanted to keep that flavor. So somehow or another, mint jelly got involved with lamb. But it's always best to use the fresh herbs. So they use like rosemary, mint, but that's a carryover basically from the culture from trying to keep the meat from going bad or hiding the smell of it going bad. Okay, tzatziki. Now here I have the sauce I'm going to use for the pita is a tzatziki sauce. I have basically Greek yogurt. I have it lined in cheesecloth, sitting for a couple hours. Tzatziki sauce is going to be very thick because I'm in addition to cucumbers too. What you want to do is take your yogurt and a cheesecloth and a strainer, and what happens is you get the cheese, kind of like the curd of the cheese, and also this liquid at the bottom that all come from the yogurt. I don't know if you can see, it's a big soupy mix. Some genius along the line took that stuff, he was involved in cheese production, added chocolate syrup to it, made Yoo-hoo, and he made $1 million out of it. So that's what it is. It's like a high protein concentration, but he decided just to flavor it and sell it and bottle it, and that's how you get Yoo-hoo, basically. So I'll add my yogurt. Salt. The garlic I'm just going to mince very fine. Now you're kind of looking for, you don't want like large chunks of garlic because it is a sauce. So the finer you can get it, the better off you're going to be. So it macerates in the sauce easier. The garlic, it's all over this dish. I got lamb in it and the sauce too. About as fine as you want it, minced. Yeah. To this, I'm going to have the addition of the zest and the juice of 3 lemons for the acid. Now, when you get to the citrus, when you're adding a zest of something, when you get that white pith, you want to stop. That's where all the bitterness is. All the essential oils are on the outside fruit. So after your fruit is washed, only when you go down to that white stop, the white part, you got to stop because it gets very bitter. The best way to get the juice from here into there, cheesecloth always works the best. So all you gotta do is take your fruit, wrap it in here, and it'll catch all the seeds and the pulp that you don't want. Any questions so far? No?
I have a question, Eric.
Yes.
How much salt did you put in? It seemed like you put quite a bit.
How much salt? How much salt was added? It was 5 teaspoons to this particular. It's going to be about equivalent of 10 cups of yogurt. So basically, the recipe that you have, it's doubled for the tzatziki recipe. So for this, these are the cucumbers I had minced. Squeeze out the juice because you don't want watery sauce. Olive oil, about 5 teaspoons of that. Season it. This particular is what you want. This is fresh mint and fresh oregano mixed together, minced up. Now this is a great sauce because you're going to get the acid, and also from the yogurt, it has the acidophilus culture plus the acid from the lemons. It's going to be a great foil against the lamb because lamb, inherently fatty, very rich flavors. The meat is caramelized. So it's going to go right through the fat of that meat when you taste this on the pita. That's it, pretty much of that. So you see, I think it is. It's not like a typical yogurt because we strained that out. All that juice came out of there, the whey. Okay, I'll put this on the side. Now I'm talking a little about the lamb. The lamb that you, on the recipe here for the marinade, I said it's the same as that vinaigrette. So what I did, I have about 12 pounds of lamb. The recipe that I gave you is good for about 12 pounds of cubed leg meat, about 1 inch, 1.5 inches. And then you let it sit for about 4 hours. Now marinades are really good to have, especially you got to watch what you're using. Anything like an acid, what they call, is going to affect the proteins in the meat. A lot of times if you use like pineapple or fruit, things like that, there's certain enzymes, like pineapple has an enzyme called papain, it'll actually degrade your meat. If you don't marinate it for more than 2 hours, it actually becomes like milky and soft. The whole idea is a marinade is going to tenderize your meat. It does happen that way. It's kind of like a mind freak, if you will. If you imagine like a rubber band, a loose rubber band, you're chewing on it. It's like really loose and you can't get through it. What the acid does actually tightens up your meat fibers. It's called shear strength. So when your teeth actually go through those meat fibers, they're actually snapping very easily. So it gives you the appearance of being tender, which actually does tighten the meat fibers up. So it's not really tenderized. You just actually activated the meat protein, so it's got really tight. So it's easier to chew. Okay. Leave my pan really hot. Okay. The lamb I have cubed is on skewers in the marinade. We're going to talk about a little bit what they call the Maillard reaction. Inherently in meat, if I took this lamb and poached it in a liquid medium water, it wouldn't have a good flavor. What you want to do, especially when like lean cuts of meat, tender cuts like this, you want to develop an outside crust. That has to do with what's called the Maillard reaction. What that means is inherent in every piece of meat, there's proteins, so there's amino acids. So when the heat is exposed to those amino acids, they break up. They'll be activated with the sugar in your marinade or any sugar in the meat, and they break down, so you're forming hundreds of new compounds on the surface of that meat. So when you're searing a meat, you're not really, it's a myth, you're not really making a barrier to keep juices in there, you're actually losing juices. But if it's a tender cut of meat, you just develop flavor, color, and texture. What you want is to have those meat proteins caramelize with the sugars and develop that texture. You're not going to get that if you boil it or anything like that. So when you're sauteing, especially or roasting, you want to kind of like make sure you get like a golden brown on the outside of this, and then you know it's accomplished. But don't, like when you read a book, don't think that you're making this a magic barrier that's going to seal in your juice, because that doesn't happen. Because if I took this and I put it right in the oven, and this piece of equivalent weight and seared it first, this by far would have less of a yield if I seared it than this did. This will have more juice, but it will not have the flavor that the other one would have. Indeed. Now I'm going to sear this pretty high heat. I'm going to use a canola oil base versus olive oil base. Now, if I use a typical fruit oil, a lot of nut oils too, they have a low smoke point, meaning if they get to a certain temperature, the oil is going to degrade and burn. Sometimes you get flames out of it. You have to have a high smoke point because I want the meat heat high enough where it's going to caramelize that meat without degrading my oil. I don't want it to burn taste on it either. That's hot. Look for that immediate sear on the meat. See, immediately you get that brown structure. That's the effect of all the amino acids breaking down. They're forming hundreds of new compounds. Now that being said, lamb has a different protein structure than chicken, than does fish or pork. So you have different proteins, but it's inherent, that flavor is going to be inherent to that particular meat that you're using. So lamb proteins are different than pork ones, but you still want to get that browning on there. Now I can't fully cook it on here, so I'll finish it in like a 450-degree oven until it's done. But the outside is caramelized, so the flavor is going to be developed at that point. Now I didn't give you a recipe for pita bread. Flatbreads are common in Mediterranean culture, as is Greece. So the whole idea of this, I have different elements to this plate. You're going to have a lamb souvlaki, which is that lamb that we just cooked off, with some of the tzatziki sauce and some vegetables with feta cheese on top of the pita. And that's lamb souvlaki. Any questions? We need some help, Sam, for some serve. Any questions? Wow, easy crowd. Now, as I did, I pre-did the lamb and kept it warm. See, so. Like I said, I have the onions and celery I already did in here, so it's before service. So now is the time I'm going to put the vinaigrette on the vegetables. Because if I did this at the beginning, I guarantee you by now, this lettuce would be flaccid and there'd be a big pool of water at the bottom, you'd be able to taste the vinaigrette.
Eric, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
on that? Who was your biggest influence? Did somebody like inspire you to become?
If you look in the back of this handout, I have an article. My grandfather was a native of Greece, and he arrived America in his teens, and he was actually a chef. Grew up in Utica. So if you're in the, my grandfather he did come after service in the Greek Navy, and he was allowed to come to America. So his first job was in Coney Island as a prep cook, and then from there he went to Utica with his brother, and they had a diner, obviously, most Greeks do, and then they split, and then he has his own restaurant. So I get he actually worked till he was 86 in the restaurant, and he only had to retire because he had arthritis. So, but he still had 20 years of retirement after that. So he's around for a while. But yeah, he passed when I was in high school. So.
Did you get a chance to work with him?
At his house, yeah. It was because of him I had learned all about organ meats. He'd serve like a beef tongue, and I wouldn't want to eat it because it tastes like you're kissing a cow and you taste the taste buds, and it's like, forget about it. But he got really like mad if you didn't try his stuff, so I was kind of forced to eat this stuff out of respect, but I wouldn't have it again. Okay, so now each element is seasoned. Another thing too is like anything you put on a plate, season as you go. You don't want to add like raw lettuce or raw tomatoes on something like that because you're taking away the flavor of it. Salt, you want things to taste salty, but salt will extract moisture, but also augments the flavor of what you're trying to do. You don't want to have anything salty per se, but that is the master seasoning. So anything you want to do, salt and pepper particularly, as you're adding anything to your dish. Okay. Pitas, where'd I put them? Right there. Okay. Typically, I'll put it on a plate like this. When you get it, it's going to be flat. Just pull up the size you get. I also want to talk about this, which I forgot to add. This is a goat's milk feta that's packed in brine. So it's going to be like the heavy salt. That's why I kind of like did a little bit easy on the salt for the most part, because this is going to add a lot of flavor to it.
Eric, I have a question about the pita.
Yeah.
Is that different from naan? You know the bread naan?
Yes. This is going to be, it's very similar in the fact of how it's baked. This has like a wheat, well, they're both wheat based, but the naan has like a more of a firmer texture to it, I believe. This is like more of a soft texture. Now I also have like, this one's a pocketless pita, one with pockets too. The difference is in how you cook it with the heat too. So naan is cooked very similar in the way that a pocketless pita is done with the high intense heat. So you can get that caramelization on the outside, but it also has like a firmer texture than this does too. It's like a different, very similar in recipes though. Yeah. Actually, I can't tell you the difference in recipe between naan and pita. I mean, as far as, you know anything? Same ingredients, just the different ratios. Yeah. Like you can see like peas with pockets and some without. The only idea is when you want like a pita without a pocket, you're going to put your oven like at a higher temperature, because at a lower temperature, I'm sorry, with the pocket, higher temperature, because you're going to caramelize the outside of the starches. So the moisture that's in there is going to elevate and split your bread. If you do it at a lower temperature, the moisture is going to evaporate before that outside is totally cemented and closed shut. So that's how you get no pocket. So basically it's a variation in temperature if you want a pocket for the most part. So this one is pocketless, so it's cooked at a lower temperature. Okay, here's one.
Maybe 3.
Yeah, even 3. No more questions? No? All right, then what are we going to do next week? Next month? What is it?
Spain.
Spain?
Thumbs up. Spain.
Yeah? All right, great. Thanks, guys.